So here we are. And I used to think that I was an old beast in the room with all the startups. Being Booz Allen Hamilton, it's launched in 1914. Mm-hmm. However, the New York Times is definitely the dinosaur.
That's true.
So you want to give a little context about your company?
Sure. Journey? Yeah. So we usually do win that competition. We've been around for coming up on 170 years. Hopefully, most of you have heard of the New York Times, but just to give a little context, obviously we're a news outfit. This is a little bit out of date. We're up to over 4,000 people and about 40% journalists. We report from all over the world, produce a lot of journalism. We also have a lot of other touch points with our customers these days. We have a big events business. We have The Daily, which is a wildly popular podcast, so we're getting into audio. We've launched a television show called The Weekly with FX and Hulu recently. And we have some interesting readers out there, including the one in the White House who likes to tweet about us. Got a bunch of mentions last year. That's pretty fun. So that's the Times.
Yeah, so you've transitioned now from obviously old school newspapers to a very digital space. What I would be interested in now is that customer journey. So how are you transitioning and how do you fit within the AI concept here?
Sure. So the big change for us is we've made that digital transition. We're 20 years into it now, but really in the last 3 or 4 years, or even 2 or 3 years, we've turned the corner. We now have, this number is also a little out of date, we're up to probably 3.75 or so digital subscribers, far more than we've ever had in print, even at our peak. We have a number of other digital products, and we'll reach our goal that we've had for the last 5 or 6 years of reaching 800 million in pure digital revenue. We're going to hit that early. So we feel like we've really turned the corner in our digital journey. So back even in 2011, which is when we launched the paywall, which I think is the start of our real digital business, that it was a web-based world, and we were really an advertising-first business. What we've learned over the years since we launched the paywall, first of all, we arrived at a mobile-first world. So what matters for us is people having the app on the phone. And we're clearly now a subscription and digital subscription-driven business. That's where all the growth is. Advertising is still important to us, but it's a very tough business these days, digital advertising. And print is hanging in there subscription-wise, but it's we don't get any growth out of it. All of the growth, so the future of the business is all in digital. So you asked about our customer journey. This is the way now that we look at our whole business. These are in the past, even as we were building the paywall, we didn't really know how it worked. So people would come read us, and at a certain point, I think we started where the digital meter was at 50 articles or something. We brought it down over the years, but we didn't really know how that would work and how people would react. Now we know there's 2 key inflection points in our customer journey. There's the moments of conversion, and that's primarily converting people from a casual drive-by reader to someone who's made some commitment to us and been activated. So either they've signed up for a newsletter, or they've downloaded the app, or they've registered. And then ultimately subscription conversion, getting people to convert to a subscriber. Those conversion moments are a big leverage point. And then the other is how we build habit and engagement in between those events. So once we've gotten someone's attention, how do we get them using the app enough and interacting with our journalism enough that they're ready to put money down? And it turns out that both of those problems are excellent, like ML tractable optimization problems. So sometimes what I say is our whole business is basically 2 math equations, and to the extent we can turn those into ML-driven, always-on optimizations, that's what we're excited about.
Okay, so you talked about the recommendation product and the business marketing side.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit more about the business marketing.
Sure. So the terms we use when we talk about this internally are growth and engagement as the 2, growth being growth and acquisition and engagement. So the work that we've done to work on those conversion moments to date has been around targeting the offer that we make, and that's both the bundle that we lead with and the price and the discount that we offer. In the past, this was a slow manual, like test and learn driven process that was half test driven and half guesswork driven probably, and also very like labor intensive, where throughout the course of a month, we have this monthly cadence because of the way our meter works. The meter expires back to 0 at the beginning of the month. So everything kind of builds throughout the month, convert a bunch of people, and then it drops off. So there's a lot of manual work to change out the campaigns and creative that went along with that. We've optimized all of that, and now we target the bundle and the offer. And it's particularly important we've learned to do that on mobile because there's so little real estate to work with. And if we don't lead with kind of the best offer right away, we're going to lose people immediately. And we've seen great results. We've seen a 20% lift in conversion on mobile, which is a massive impact on our business. Mm-hmm. The other thing that's great is we've automated that process of sort of cycling in the different stages of offer and the creative that go along with them throughout the month. So that's like saved a bunch of work. Mm-hmm. Not anywhere near the same level of investment in the business, but a nice to have. And then the other thing that's great is we can tweak a few parameters in the model to play with the balance between long-term value, lifetime value, LTV of those subscribers, and the volume of subscribers. So sometimes, depending on kind of where the story we're telling, to our investors, for example, we'll want to acquire more subscribers, and optimize LTV later through cross-selling or whatever. Sometimes we'll be more concerned on lifting LTV up so we can play with those parameters right in the model.
It's a good news story.
That's good.
So now you've got the marketing. So now how are you getting people to come to really want to see the value of New York Times?
Yeah, so that work of building engagement is the other key problem in our business. And this is about relevance. This is about using algorithms to identify, in the array of stories that we produce every day, like what's going to resonate most with an individual reader, and then build their habit over time so they continue to come back, they open us multiple times a day, and ultimately hit that point where they're ready to subscribe. This has been really challenging for us because we value so much, and our readers value the curation of the news that we do. The newsroom has, a big part of the work they do is to tell you what you need to know and to actually curate the news. And there's value also in that everybody's seeing the same thing. So we were quite reluctant to start personalizing the home feed. What we've just launched, and I think it's only out to about 50% of the user base right now, but half of you, if you open the app, you'll see this For You tab in the middle now. So we put right at the heart of the app experience a completely personalized feed. And there's a startup process where you go through and you identify a few topics you're interested in, and then over time, we just program that algorithmically based on what we see you engaging with. So what we love about this is it meets actually a different user need. If the main feed is about what's happening in the world right now, what do I need to know to be informed, this is about rewarding curiosity and driving discovery, and also surfacing all of the deep journalism that we do across many different topics. We produce 250 to 300 pieces a day. Only 25 to 40 of those will be featured in the home screen. Yeah, and really the emphasis is on hard news, international news, investigative stuff. A lot of the other work we do just never surfaces. So this is another way to surface the breadth of what we do, which we also know is highly correlated to that eventual conversion. And this is so early. We launched this, I think, 10 days ago. So we're not ready to share data yet.
So it's hot off the press.
It's hot off the press, so to speak. Right. Yeah. But the early results are absurdly positive, and we're not talking about the numbers yet because we also rolled it out to subscribers first, so people that we already knew were engaged. We need to see how it plays out across people who are earlier in the journey before we share numbers, but it's looking really, really good.
So a couple things about, obviously we've heard biases, we've heard all these ethics and things about AI. Obviously you've stumbled through probably a couple of those to date, even though it is a fresh launch. How, here I see the heart of the app is the piece about the For You, right? And I know there's been conversations around the echo chamber and kind of feeding what people already think and view and their priorities. Yep. How are you helping to make sure that people are still hearing the things that maybe aren't necessarily for them? I think you might have touched on it. But.
Yeah, for sure. So it was very important for us to not touch what you can see in here is the top stories tab, which is still the default. That's what you open the app to, and that's programmed by the newsroom. And this is what really blocked us from doing algorithmic recommendation for years, was not wanting to mess with that thing. And that's, again, that's where the dangers of a filter bubble forming would really play out, because that's where the hard news is surfacing most. So it was actually it's a big unlock for us to say, well, let's just have another surface where we can do this, and we can do it freely, and we can do it in an ideal way. And it's funny, like I often think of the metered paywall, which is how our paywall works. You get to read a certain amount before you're challenged. That was a huge unlock for us too, and it enabled us to have a paywall, but also participate in the social conversation essentially, and still have SEO work and so on. It was actually like a really big innovation in the business, but it seems so obvious that nobody really thinks about it that way. This is really the same for us. It seems kind of so obvious and simple, but it's been a huge unlock for us. And it allows us to, we still have to think about bias. I mean, bias is a deep and nuanced topic, but the filter bubble, we don't have to worry about that much, because we're presenting right along, like in our default view, we're saying like, here's what you really need to know to be like a responsible citizen. So we feel like we're touching that base.
That's awesome. And you had talked about there's so many other things that aren't being read necessarily on the New York Times digital feed. One of those is I think the Privacy Project, which not many people probably know about. It's amazing. You should go read. And it's really dissecting that issue of privacy. So obviously you're collecting lots of analytics, lots of personal data about the people that subscribe.
Yeah.
How are you managing that privacy aspect? I know you're along the journey.
So it's been so interesting, because the Privacy Project is a long-running project that's we launched, I think it was in early May, and it's running for several more months. It's out of the opinion desk, where we're commissioning a series of pieces on privacy from all sorts of different angles, all through opinion. So we're bringing in a lot of external experts and people with perspectives. And it was kicked off by our publisher, A.G. Sulzberger, and I remember the first meeting where, it was secret, so we gathered a handful of people and said, well, we're about to launch this privacy project where we're really going to go out and stake out a position. So how are we feeling about our own practices? And we're kind of like, oh, well, but the answer is, the key is that we had to go through a year ago the GDPR compliance exercise, and that allowed us to scrutinize what we were doing. And we've never shared the kind of information that we collect on what people read with any third parties at all. So for us, it's data that we've held dear and kept safe for our readers. And now we view it as a trade that we will make out in the open with readers, which is, if you are comfortable with us collecting this information, not sharing with anyone, but we're going to use it to create a better product for you and a better report. And if you're not comfortable with that, you can opt out of it. Yeah. But it's, the privacy challenge is real for us too. There are things we've changed in our business in the process of scrutinizing ourselves, and there's things we're going to continue to change in the future, and we'll make mistakes. But we're trying to hold ourselves to the same standards we hold everyone else to, and really walk the walk.
There's two more things I want to touch on, and I know we want to be mindful of time. So this was kind of a Navy SEALs exercise, right? You sent out this refined team to go out and test out this, this approach. How are you scaling this? What's your plan for growth across the organization?
So I've been personally working on this a lot and thinking about it. We were lucky in a way that 4 or 5 years ago, we got into a relationship with a professor at Columbia, a guy named Chris Wiggins, who built a pretty strong data science and machine learning capability. But for years, we weren't really sure what to do with it. And we did a number of kind of one-off projects. I told you we did a paper delivery route optimization project and an ink optimization project and some analytics things for the newsroom. But about a year and a half ago, I said to the team, okay, that's interesting. We've done these little forays into ML. But what are the real core problems of our business? And what if we really tried to point all of our precious machine learning expertise at the core problems? That led to that analysis of finding those inflection points and what are the key optimization problems at the heart of our business. So now what we're doing is we're building an actual applied machine learning program supported by a team. And the team is organized around those problems. So I'm putting together teams of data scientists and engineers and analysts and product people organized around these key problems that I expect they're going to work on, forever, whatever forever means, for years to come. We'll continue to plug away. I mentioned algorithmic recommendation and targeted offers. The next one is probably incorporating our new products, which is things like cooking and crosswords, these other products that we've launched, and tackling kind of the cross-sell and LTV maximization problem. The key other unlock there for us was making sure and defending the position of leadership in these teams for data scientists. So we learned the hard way that well-meaning people from other parts of the business, including engineers, but whether product people or editors in the newsroom, if they don't understand how algorithms really work, they're not going to do the right things. So we very clearly said these teams are going to be led by data scientists, and we're going to give them a context in the product that fits with the strategy and let them have free reign. So again, the other thing that's great about having that dedicated for you tab is we can say, optimize this, optimize engagement with this feed. If they were working on the home screen, where we're actually, there's a lot more things going on there, and we need to preserve the editorial viewpoint, and at the end, they just can't have that much impact. So that's what we're doing now. We're building out this applied machine learning team, and I feel like, in the next couple of years, there's a tremendous amount of opportunity and headroom. We're just getting started, so it feels really good.
That's awesome. And so the last topic is, so you've used AI for your marketing, you've used it for your recommendation feed algorithms. You're also using it for investigative journalism. And the recent one I saw was on July 3rd about Hong Kong, the protests, the July 1st protests. But on July 3rd, you released sort of this algorithm for head counting, because there's this difference between how many of the protesters say were there and how many the authorities say are there. And you are trying to help bring validity. And so can you talk about how that investigative journalism?
Yeah, sure. So this is honestly another area that was difficult for us, bringing machine learning into the journalistic process. And others in the industry took an approach of having sort of automated stories around earnings or sports or things like this, and that didn't interest us at all, so we sat on the sidelines for that. It's just not what we do. But over the last year or so, mostly behind this one part of our newsroom, which is called the Video Investigations Desk, we found some really interesting opportunities. And it's about applying machine learning to a couple of problems. One is that kind of work of using often satellite imagery actually to and then applying machine learning to derive insights from what's happening. We did another piece on rebel activity in West Africa. I forget exactly where the country was, but we were able to determine from satellite imagery that villages were being systematically burned. We did a piece on the chemical bombings in Syria where we were able to prove that the government account of what happened was wrong through forensic analysis of video and still photography evidence as well. And the way machine learning comes into play is in all kinds of ways, but often it's about correlating many disparate pieces of media.
Like for the Las Vegas shooting, you had mentioned different mobile videos that you stitched together to put together.
Perfect example where we had 100, 120 individual cell phone recordings of that scene, and we were able to correlate them all by lining up audio cues mostly, which is an incredibly painstaking process. That was a case where we started to do it manually, and we were like, this is really hard, And we're working within a news cycle, so if we can't turn that around quickly, we're going to miss the cycle. So we've continued to refine our techniques and find ways to introduce machine learning to automate parts of that process, which has been a very, very powerful technique, and we're super excited about it.
So it's not AI writing and doing the journalism, it's AI equipping the speed to getting the stories out, finding the facts.
And really creating new investigative techniques, often based around media. But another thing that we haven't talked about as much is finding the stories in large document troves is another great NLP/machine learning problem. for example, the Panama Papers, which we weren't super well equipped to do. The next time we think we'll
You will be. Awesome. Well, thank you very much. I've definitely learned a lot.
Great. Thank you.